Hey everyone, welcome to the second ever episode of Power Moves Young Leaders Network Edition. On this episode, I chat with Kelsey Belluz of RE/MAX Generations Realty in Thunder Bay, Ontario. This was a great conversation, and something that was crazy was discovering that Kelsey first got into the industry at the age of 15 years old. She was doing administrative tasks at the office before she went on to get her license in 2009 and then her broker designation in 2011. But we talk about what it was like to start in the industry at such a young age. I think she was 18 when she first became a realtor, and how she dealt with clients who maybe had some doubts about whether she'd be able to do a professional job. She told some great stories in that regard. She also talked about stepping outside of your comfort zone, and she references last year's Young Leaders Network event that took place in Montreal. She wasn't going to get on the plane. She was nervous about going to this event, but she went, and she was so thankful that she did. She explains why. We jump into all sorts of topics. I hope you're going to enjoy this episode of Power Moves Young Leaders Network Edition. From RE/MAX, this is Power Moves YLN Edition, where we go in depth with some of the best young RE/MAX agents and brokers to unpack what it takes to be a top producing real estate agent and the moves that took their career to new heights. My name is Wade Paterson. I'm a director with RE/MAX Canada, and it's my honor to be your host for this audio experience. And on this episode, I'm joined by Kelsey Belluz, broker with RE/MAX Generations Realty. Born and raised in Thunder Bay, Ontario, Kelsey grew up in the real estate industry. At the age of 15, she began working at the brokerage as administrative support before becoming a full-time realtor in 2009. Today, Kelsey is a Chairman's Club producing agent, a RE/MAX Hall of Fame Career Award recipient, and a RE/MAX Canada Young Leaders Network ambassador. Kelsey, welcome to Power Moves YLN Edition.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
15 years old, 15 when you started in the brokerage. Like, walk me
Yes.
through that. Did you even have a chance at another career, or were you destined to be in real estate from the start?
Well, I applied to McDonald's and they wouldn't hire me. So I had to get, so that's how it all started. So I applied at a couple fast food restaurants. Like my family, I'm a third generation realtor. So real estate has always been in my blood. I was born and raised in it. But I kept trying to get these like normal, typical teenager jobs and I couldn't get them. So I took on a co-op at my brokerage when I was like 13 or 14 years old. And I started inputting listings into our website. And that was my like daily task. And then all of a sudden I kind of became more and more into it. I really wanted to do it. And then my mom and dad did not want me to get into real estate. They're like, don't do it, do something else. I wanted to be a teacher, but then I was like, I'm going to do what they're telling me not to do. And so I worked at a bank as well. So I'm a little bit crazy. When I started in real estate, I took my courses when I was 18. So I was the youngest licensed realtor ever in Thunder Bay.
Wow.
And so by the time I was 19, I was licensed. I was getting my business degree at Lakehead University in Thunder Bay. And I was also working at a bank. So I was very driven and I'm like, no, I got to get this done. I have the life I want to create for myself, and I did it. So
that's awesome. So what do you think you gained, like looking now later in your career, from some of those administrative tasks you were taking on at the brokerage level? Like, did that give you any benefit later on in your career?
definitely, I think it helps me understand what the admin needs from me, and what, learning kind of what makes you stand out and what makes other listings stand out as well. So I pride myself in making people's listings stand out when I list them. And I think learning all those things in the back end of the situations and how to better, social media wasn't a big thing when I was first starting. I don't even know if Facebook existed, but learning it and growing with it, it's really interesting to see almost a respect thing for your admin and realizing how detailed you have to be and how important it is. Even the slightest thing can make a big mistake for people and cost somebody tens of thousands of dollars. So it opened my eyes a lot, I think, at the beginning.
And then being a third generation realtor, do you think that was reverse psychology from your parents? Do you think they were secretly happy that you ended up in, or why were they telling you choose a different career path?
Well, my dad's was and still is ecstatic. My grandfather, I think he cried when I was licensed. I'm like, surprise, here I am. My mom, I think my mom realized how much you have to invest in your life when you're a realtor. Like, this isn't just your typical 9 to 5 job, right? So it's a lifestyle. And if you're going to excel in it, you have to embrace the lifestyle. And I think she was like, oh, do I really want to watch my kid live the lifestyle I had to live for however many years? But I didn't know any different. And I think it doesn't really make a difference to me because I didn't know any different.
So I know when somebody has parents, or in your case, several generations that have been in the industry preceding you, I mean, it's pretty clear to identify some of the positives and the advantages, and the fact that you have somebody you can tap into who has that experience. Sometimes there's a leg up that way. Do you see any disadvantages?
So I was a little unique. Like my mom, my dad, and my grandfather are a 3-person team in our brokerage. Um, I was never allowed to be part of that team.
Oh,
So
wow.
no, so it was like tough love when I started. And I'm grateful for it because they said to me, they're like, you're never going to be a success like you want to be if you just get things handed to you. You've got to work for them. So did I get to do open houses on their listings? Yes. Like I got to, like every other agent in our office did. But I had to beg for them. If I wasn't the first person to ask for them, I was like, oh, sorry, Kelsey, somebody else is doing it. It was a lot of hard work. And then I didn't have the typical people say, when you first start in real estate, all your friends and your family and everything are buying houses from you. Well, I was 19 years old, so most of my friends weren't buying homes. And the ones that were buying them from my parents because they were family friends. So I had to kind of figure out how to tap into this whole different market of people that I didn't really know and spiral and build my business based off that. But I'm very grateful for the tough love because I don't think I'd be where I am today without it.
Yeah, well said. So 2009, you become a realtor. By
Yep.
2011, you're getting your broker designation. So why did you take kind of each of those steps? I guess the first step being full-fledged realtor from administrative support, and then only 2 years later getting the broker designation.
I wanted to be able to help at the office. So, my parents owning the brokerage and my grandfather starting the brokerage in the 70s, they always had mentorship and leadership. And I wanted to kind of add to that. I wanted them to be able to take holidays and know that they can trust me to run the company while they're gone. And it did take a few years. I remember when they first started taking holidays, for example, the my first week in the business, they all left. And this is when you don't bring your cell phone. So I was carrying around a Ziploc bag with 3 different cell phones in it because we didn't call forward, the texts weren't forwarded, and I was trying my best not to lose all these cell phones. And I did a final walkthrough. I was licensed for 48 hours. So I did a final walkthrough for my parents. And it was a 2-story home. And we went upstairs, and the buyers were like, oh, they told us to check the toilets, make sure nothing leaks. And I'm like, are you sure? Okay, whatever. So we walked downstairs and the whole ceiling in the kitchen caved in. That
No.
was my first week in real estate. Could not reach my parents. I didn't know what the heck to do. The other agent worked at a different brokerage, but he'd known me from my whole childhood. So I called him. I'm like, I don't know what to do. And he thought I was kidding. And I was like, no, I'm being very serious. The ceiling has caved in and there's water everywhere and I don't know what to do. We figured it out. We ended up getting somebody in there to do an emergency restoration and it closed 2 days late, but we did it. Um,
Wow.
yeah, so that's how I got entered into real estate. Like I got thrown into the dragon's den and I had to figure it out, but it was the best.
What's like, how did you get people to take you seriously? Because I'm just thinking, you talked about how young you were when you first came into the business. I would imagine that, especially if maybe some people are used to working with your parents or your
Yep.
granddad, like they're, I don't know, maybe the initial thought is like, oh, like we got the newbie kind of thing. Like, how did you get people to take you seriously?
So when I started, I drove a little red Pontiac Sunfire, and I with like it was decked out with these chrome rims, and it was my high school vehicle. And I'm like, nobody's gonna take me seriously in this little decked out Sunfire. So I said, I gotta figure it out, and I gotta figure it out fast. So I worked my butt off, and I bought myself like a real estate car when I was able to after about 6 months in the business. And then my next goal was nobody's gonna take me seriously if I don't own a house. So then that was my next thing. And I went in and it was almost like a you have to fake it till you make it kind of thing. if I didn't know something, I learned really early on in the business that it's okay to say, hey, I'm not sure, let me find out and I'll get back to you, as opposed to stumbling over my words and just not knowing what I was saying or giving improper information. So I want to say, like, I faked it till I made it. And I did get involved in a lot of community events. We had something called the Day of Caring with our United Way here, and I got involved in that pretty early on. And I helped with that just to kind of get my name out there. And I mean, obviously, I utilized my last name. Like in Thunder Bay, before we joined Remax, we were an independent and it was the name of the city. So, like Belluz Realty was what people had known us for. So I kind of had the name, but I had to prove myself with that name. There was a lot of expectations with the name following that. So it was stressful at times, but it was also the reason I am where I am.
So for somebody who's listening to this, who's maybe very young, like,
Yep.
25 younger, which we would consider to be very young in this industry,
Yes.
what's your advice for maybe they're feeling it's a little tougher than they anticipated coming in?
Um, it's only as tough as you want to make it. Like in reality, this industry is tough, whether you're just starting out or you've been in it for 15 or 30 years. I feel like with the way social media is and everything now, like you have to embrace change and it's super important. Like I could sit there and be like, oh, this isn't how it was done when I started 15 years ago. I remember we couldn't even digitally sign anything when I started. I'd be at the office at 6 a.m. meeting shift workers to sign documents, or at the office till 2 a.m. because you couldn't electronically do anything. So now giving advice to new people or younger people, just stick true to yourself and find a mentor that's willing to let you run their open houses, let you, learn from them. I think it's a big thing. It's something that I like to do. We have a young demographic of agents that work for us, and I like to go and do things and learn, like kind of learn by trial and error, but then I bring back to them what I've learned and what works and what doesn't. And I say, it's up to you. If you want to listen to me, great. If not, that's okay too. But yeah, I try to tell them, like, listen to people who are willing to help you because it's going to get you so far in the industry.
Kelsey, one of the things we were talking about when we were originally planning to do this podcast episode is that the theme that might be good to incorporate in the conversation is stepping outside of your comfort zone. So I'm curious, what
Yes.
is a specific example that you've had where you've stepped outside of your comfort zone, and what did that look like?
Well, I will say it time and time again, going to conferences. I never
Mhm.
did for the first 10 years of my career. Then we transitioned into the franchise, and I was like, oh, I'm still kind of scared. I don't know other people. Like, I'm a very shy person, believe it or not. So the first thing I did was I went to the Ontario Real Estate Association has something called Reality, which is coming soon next week. And yeah, so we're all going to be there. It'll be fun. But I went to that and I sat there with an open mind and I learned, but I went with people from Thunder Bay. So then I went to the YLN event that we had in Montreal. I went solo. So last year's event, I was freaking out. I almost didn't get on the plane. I'm like, what am I doing? I'm going to be with a bunch of strangers. I don't know what to talk to them about. And I've now made lifelong friends, lifelong business partners who we bounce ideas off of each other, we motivate each other, and it just helps you level up your career. There are people in the industry who also want to see you grow and see you succeed. And I think when you find those like minded people and put yourself out of those comfort zones, your success is just going to be insane. It's just an amazing feeling.
So I want to dive deeper into that. So you're so scared, you almost don't get on the plane, you show up to the event. How did you approach it? How did you put yourself out there? Like, did you go up and start talking to people, or where did you find that mindset changed of like, oh, these are friends, these are great people?
So I sat at a table with, I knew like vaguely a couple agents. Like they used to have, it was, I think, top agents under 30 that Remax did when it was Integra. And I went to one of those, like, I think my daughter was 3 months old. So it was the first time away from her. And I went and I met a couple people there. So we kept in touch slightly, but nothing crazy. So I'm like, I know that person. And I jumped to that and they introduced me to other people. And by the end of it, I probably, out of the like 70 something people that were there, I probably keep in touch with a good at least 50% of them. It was, yeah, it was so awesome. And I'm glad I jumped out of my comfort zone.
So speaking of the Young Leaders Network, YLN, you're an ambassador, and thank you
Yes.
for being an ambassador. What would you say to our young agents within REMAX, 40 years old or younger, who have yet to get involved, whether that's on attending the event or even just virtually through the closed Facebook group? What benefit have you gotten out of the YLN?
Um, I can't even explain how the support from all these young agents across Canada are. Like, just to dive back in, being with like-minded people, they're going to support you. Everybody knows about all these Facebook groups and everything that they're like looking for an agent here, looking for an agent there. But when you get to know that group of YLNers, they are your like personal cheerleaders, and we're always like, you have to go with this person. And you get to know people, you get to see them, and you watch them, whether you see them at conferences or you get friendships where you are visiting their town or city, and you get to go visit them and things like that. You really get to know them on a personal level. And it's just awesome. If you're under the age of 40 and you are not part of the YLN, or you are not involved, even just on the Facebook page, you have to be, because you are missing out on one, motivation, and two, a really good referral source of business.
So I may be putting you on the spot with this one, but we know we've had the save the date that's been announced for the 2024 YLN event. It's May 12th to 14th in Victoria, British Columbia. Are you going?
Flights are booked. I'm there, baby.
Yeah.
I wouldn't miss it for the world.
Perfect. And so, I mean, you've already kind of explained this, but just again, to somebody who's maybe not attended one of these events, high level, what can they expect?
Okay, my mind was blown when I went to this event. It was next level. For the investment that it is, REMAX has pulled out all the stops for their young agents. It's a young event. Like, it's fun, it's exciting. I mean, I don't know how much I can talk about the last event with some of the stuff we went to, but like, there was a boat cruise for lunch. It was tons of networking. It was like a really good 50-50 mix, and it's very small. So if you're going to an event and nervous, this is the perfect one to go to, because you're not dealing with thousands of people. You're dealing with under 100 people for the most part. And it's just, you guys, honestly, the event was just the best ever. It was awesome.
Well, and one of the cool things that I observed, it's fun from my position, kind of being the outside looking in a little bit and seeing those relationships being built, but then how that carries forward to other events as well. So we have Activate this year. It's happening in September in Toronto.
Yeah.
And last year was in Vancouver. And you started to see this natural, like a bunch of YLNers right off the beginning. We have kind of a cocktail reception, everyone gets
Yep.
together. And then throughout the conference, the next few days, you have friends and people who you can, it's not so intimidating to attend some of the other
Not
stuff.
at all.
Yeah.
You sit with them. Like, I went to the conference with people from my city, and I didn't end up sitting with them. I ended up with my YLN friends, and it was so awesome. And we always touch base. And even the next conference, I mean, it's not Canada wide, it's an Ontario based conference, but the amount of people that we've talked to that are part of the YLN that are all going to kind of band together at this event, it's great. It just feels good to know that you're not walking into these things alone once you start to meet people and get comfortable with everything.
So Kelsey, as we were talking about, you joined the industry at really the age of 15, became a realtor in 2009. So 15 years since then, since becoming a realtor. I always love asking this question. If you could go back to day one with now that decade and a half of experience, what would you do differently?
I would have actually, my biggest thing, and I will tell everybody time and time again, is I wish I had a CRM when I started.
Mm.
I I think what, a year and a half, 2 years ago, I finally did. I used to do it all off memory, and then I had my daughter and I couldn't remember anything anymore. But I feel like it was almost eye-opening, because you go and you do all these touch points with people, but then you're organically doing it. But then there's people you forget, right? If they're not in your face, you kind of forget about them, and then all of a sudden you see it's like, oh, that person listed their house with me. I think about them all the time, and I drive by their house all the time, but it's like, oh wait, that one calendar a year isn't enough. So that's something that I really changed in my business in the last couple of years, because it was it was eye-opening to me. It kind of, it hurts your feelings a little bit. It's like a punch to the gut when somebody else gets that listing where you're like, I got along with those people so well. So I tried really hard to kind of refocus and rebuild my business to being able to have scheduled touch points with people now to make sure that nobody's getting forgotten.
All in your head? That seems crazy. Or did you use some of the basic like what did that look like? Did you have like spreadsheets and stuff like that, or how are you keeping these?
A mailing label list every
Yeah,
year at Christmas.
yeah.
Facebook and Instagram helped. Like
Mm.
now, I've again stepped huge out of my comfort zone and I display my life on Instagram a lot. My daughter's a big part of my social media account and my golden retriever. They just, my daughter loves the camera. She loves to be a part of it and stuff like that. So she has fun if she hasn't been on my Instagram stories in a couple days, she's like, my followers need to see me, mom. So I've kind of let people into my life, but what I have realized is when you let people in, they see that you're human and you're not like this real estate robot who only just sells 50, 60, 70 houses a year. You are a human and more people relate to you that way. And it's almost an organic touch point too, because it's a big conversation starter.
So will you encourage your daughter to go into the real estate industry?
She's going to be 7 in June, and she told me the other day that she wants to sell real estate like her mom, and I just cringed. But I was like, I see where my mom was going with that. But no, you know what? If she decided to get into the industry when she's old enough, I think she doesn't know any different. It could be a great lifestyle for her for sure.
Well, Kelsey, this has been an awesome conversation, talking a little bit about your background, talking about stepping outside the comfort zone, the YLN as well. We like to end every episode of Power Moves YLN Edition with the same question we ask every single guest, and that is, what would you say your power move in real estate is?
My power move is genuinely caring about people. I get so invested. I lose sleep at night. Like I'm genuinely invested. It's not just a transaction for me, it's a big lifestyle for people. And I know that it's important. So if somebody doesn't trust me, it has to be there. The trust has to be there. And the fact that I genuinely care and it isn't just a sales pitch for me, it's a big thing. I always say that if this becomes about the money or anything like that, I'm out. I got to go find another career path because real estate's never been about that for me. It's always been about interacting with people. And I think that is kind of my power move in general, that I genuinely do care.
I love that. Kelsey, you're in this industry for the right reason. Thank you so much for joining myself on this episode of Power Moves YLN Edition.
It's been fun. Thanks for having me.